They say every child deserves a parent, but not every parent deserves a child. Tonight's case proves it in the darkest way imaginable. Instead of seeing 6 young souls as people to protect, one man saw them as a payday. A fame-hungry narcissist, a diagnosed psychopath, and a plan so grotesque it stunned a nation. This is the story of Mick Philpott and the fire that took 6 children. A man built on control. Born in 1956 in Derby, England, Mick Philpott would grow up to father 17 children with multiple women. That number doesn't signal love, it signals leverage. Former partners, neighbors, and professionals would describe him as controlling, violent, and performative, a man who used people as props and children as currency. Psychologists later labeled him clinically psychopathic, with antisocial personality traits and exhibitionism. Long before that diagnosis, the warnings were already blinking red. The first pattern: Kim Hill at 19. Mick began dating Kim Hill, a 15-year-old schoolgirl. He was charming until he wasn't. The mask slipped quickly. Public assaults. A blow with a pool cue that split her mouth in a pub. A broken arm. A fractured kneecap from a hammer. He accused her of cheating while he was in the army, then attacked her. At one point he shot a crossbow bolt into her groin, furious over a short dress. Kim, still a child in many ways, lied to cover his violence. She was living with a man who didn't just want to control her, he wanted to own her. In July 1978, she finally ended it via letter. Mick went AWOL from the army, broke into her home, and stabbed her 27 times with a 9-inch knife while she lay in bed. When Kim's mother tried to help, he stabbed her 11 times. Paramedics arrived to find Mick still holding the knife on the stairs. He reportedly told them, "I wouldn't bother. She's a goner." Kim died twice, once in the ambulance and again on the operating table, before doctors pulled her back. She suffered slashed organs, collapsed lungs, and a punctured bladder, kidney, and liver. Mick was convicted of attempted murder and GBH, sentenced to 70 years, and walked free after a little over 3 years for good behavior. That sentence didn't change him, it enabled him. Kim has said it plainly. You don't say no to Mick Philpott. He doesn't understand the word. The conveyor belt of abuse. Prison. Mick married Pamela Lomax in 1986. They had 3 children. The abuse continued. Pamela stayed silent, terrified. She knew what he'd done to Kim. In 1993, 37-year-old Mick started seeing Heather Koch. She was 14. She ran to him at 16. They had 2 sons. He beat her for not having a daughter. He taught older boys to be violent toward her. He held a knife to her throat when she tried to leave. Eventually, she scaled a fence and escaped, losing the children temporarily before a long court fight brought them back. Heather later said Mick was pure Jekyll and Hyde, charming at first, violent later. Pattern noted: he targeted very young, vulnerable girls, isolated them, and controlled them. 2 partners, 1 house, 11 children. In 2000, Mick met married Duffy, a 19-year-old single mother newly out of an abusive relationship. He played savior. They moved in together. He proposed after the birth of their daughter Jade. Then he added Lisa Willis, a 16-year-old orphan and single mother, as his mistress. Lisa moved in with Mick and married, becoming part of a pressured, complex household. The women, under Mick's dominance, actually grew close. Survival often does that. He married in May 2003. Lisa was the bridesmaid. From then on, he lived with 2 partners and a growing brood. 11 children between the women, in a 3-bedroom council house. Both women worked. Mick didn't. He controlled their wages and benefits, and he pushed for more children because, in his view, more kids equaled more money and more leverage to demand a bigger house from the council. Fame and performance. Mick wanted attention. In 2007, he appeared on The Jeremy Kyle Show, the UK's combative daytime talk show. He defended his unemployment, claimed he couldn't work because of his record and the media, and bragged about his family. He made lewd gestures, insisted he'd had a vasectomy, he hadn't, and brazenly suggested he'd divorce married to marry Lisa, then divorce Lisa so she could share his last name, just so she wouldn't feel left out. It was performance art from a man who craved a stage. That same year, former Conservative MP Anne Widdecombe filmed a documentary with him. She found him 3 jobs. He didn't show up for day 1. He slept in a garden caravan, alternating nights with each woman. Widdecombe noted that none of his children sought affection from him and that he routinely used a sexist slur for both women. The public got a look behind the curtain. Many still didn't grasp the danger. Behind closed doors, things were boiling. In 2010, police cautioned him for slapping Married and dragging her by the hair. Lisa wasn't spared. He hit her with wood, threw hot coffee on her, and kept her locked in. The house was a headline factory and a prison. The escape that set a fuse. In February 2012, Lisa left. She told Merritt she was taking her 5 children swimming and instead moved in with her sister. It was the only way to escape without confrontation. That single act shattered Mick's control. It also threatened his benefit stream and his public narrative. He was furious. A custody fight started, and then came a plan so cold it's hard to say out loud. The plot arson. As a PR stunt, prosecutors would argue that Mick, with married and family friend Paul Mosley, planned to set a small fire and blame Lisa. The arson would be staged to look like an attack. Mick would then, heroically, rescue the children. The goals were simple and monstrous: get the 5 children back, restore the benefits, force the council's hand for a larger home, win public sympathy, and paint Lisa as a villain. The plan depended on control of narrative, control of risk. But fire doesn't listen. May 11, 2012, 4:00 a.m. Petrol was poured through the letterbox. A flame was introduced. Within moments, smoke and heat surged up the stairs. Fire investigators would later say the bedrooms reached temperatures above 500 degrees Celsius and 932 degrees Fahrenheit. There was no chance for the children trapped upstairs. 6 children were inside. JD Tum bright, admired at school. John 90 cheerful, polite. Jack 7 quiet, gentle. Jesse 6 loud, funny. Jaden Fifi Shay cuddly. Duane 433 married son from a previous relationship, a protective big brother. Jade, John, Jack, Jesse, and Jaden died at the scene from smoke inhalation. Duane died 2 days later in hospital. On the street, neighbors watched in horror. A community that had weathered fights and hardship couldn't process this. Who lights a match when their children are asleep upstairs? The press conference and the poker tell. Police initially looked at Lisa and her family. They were cleared quickly. Meanwhile, people noticed Mick's odd behavior. A mortuary manager said he engaged in horseplay when viewing his children's bodies, even putting a liaison officer in a headlock. At a press conference, he publicly thanked supporters and announced they would donate Duane's organs, a move that would normally feel humane and heroic. But officers saw something else: flirting with a female officer, comments like calling her gorgeous, hinting she should come back to his hotel. Grief, or a man performing for cameras. To detectives, the mask was slipping. When forensics talk, lies go quiet. Investigators found a discarded petrol can and a glove near the house. Chemical tests later detected petrol on clothing belonging to Mick, Merritt, and Paul Mosley. Then came the clincher: secret recordings. Police placed listening devices in a car and in the couple's hotel room. On tape, Mick wasn't the grieving dad from TV. He was a fixer mid-spin, definitely sticking with the story. "I didn't mean to do it. It's my fault we lost our children." Another recording captured Myrid. The trio also referenced an unused ladder at the back of the house, apparently intended for Mick's staged rescue. Never deployed because the blaze became uncontrollable. The ladder wasn't a life-saving tool, it was a prop. The picture was forming: Arson meant to frame Lisa, exploit sympathy, and reassert control. The children were never the priority. The narrative was. Arrest charges, strategy. May 28, 2012, Mick and Merritt were arrested on suspicion of murder and later charged. On November 5, Paul Mosley was arrested after petrol traces were found on his clothing. As the case advanced, prosecutors weighed intent. The evidence suggested a reckless, unlawful act designed to mislead and manipulate, not an explicit plan to kill their children. So the charges were reduced to manslaughter. The deaths mattered no less. The legal question was what they intended when they struck the match. Motive: a toxic cocktail. Revenge against Lisa, benefit money, bigger house, and Mick's endless need to be center stage. Trial: the House of Cards collapses. In April 2013, the trio stood trial. Jurors heard about the petrol on clothing. They listened to the secret recordings, Mick coaxing, Merritt complying, and Mosley boasting elsewhere that he was a suspect. They learned of the ladder, the letterbox fire, and the press performance that made police suspicious. The defense tried to cast doubt. The prosecution kept returning to one truth: intentional arson to frame a mother and make a father look heroic. The judge said the fire was Mick's idea, but 6 children died because Merritt put her husband first. Patrol on her clothes showed active participation. This wasn't a tragic accident, it was a plot that spiraled into catastrophe. Merritt appealed. The Court of Appeal upheld the sentence, citing her lies, her role, and the immeasurable harm. Mick Philpott didn't stumble into tragedy. He engineered a narrative, a staged attack, a heroic rescue, headlines, sympathy, a bigger house, more money. In the process, 6 children died in their beds. He saw them as means, not people. If you take anything from this case, let it be this: believe survivors. Spot the grooming. Older men targeting teenagers is not romance, it's predation. Document control, money, movement, friends, and phones. Intervene when a controlling partner loses control. Separations are the most dangerous window.